Developing right now on Morning News Now, escalation concerns between the U.S. and Cuba after a deadly confrontation at sea. The Cuban government saying it killed or captured 10 Cuban nationals living in the U.S. after their Florida-registered speedboat entered Cuban waters. Now the U.S. working to confirm Cuba's claims that it was a foiled armed infiltration.
It is highly unusual to see shootouts in open sea like that. We're going to find out. We're not going to base our conclusions on what they've told us.
And in Geneva right now, U.S. officials in round 3 of nuclear negotiations with Iran will bring you an update from overseas. Also developing historic testimony. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton set to appear under subpoena today, giving evidence in the investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. Former President Bill Clinton set to testify tomorrow. And President Trump's pick for Surgeon General grilled by lawmakers over childhood vaccines. Will take you to Washington. Plus, new developments as the search for Nancy Guthrie stretches into a 4th week. Sources telling NBC News investigators are preparing to return her Arizona home to her family. We'll take you to Tucson for the latest in the case. And a coast-to-coast cleanup now underway after a string of powerful winter storms. We're going to show you the aftermath as we track more wild winter weather ahead as February comes to a close. Good morning. Good to have you with us on this Thursday. I'm Joe Fryer. Savannah is off. We begin this hour with that deadly incident in the Caribbean involving the Cuban Border Patrol and a U.S.-registered speedboat. Now, Cuba's Interior Ministry says its troops confronted the boat after it entered its territorial waters on Wednesday. The boat's passengers then opened fire. Cuban forces responded, killing 4 people, injuring 6. The ministry says the passengers were anti-government Cuban nationals who were living in the U.S. They're accused of intending to, quote, carry out an infiltration for terrorist purposes. The incident comes amid heightened tensions between the U.S. and Cuba. The island's economy has been crippled by the Trump administration blocking almost all oil shipments to the island. It's an attempt by Washington to increase pressure on Havana's communist government. Secretary of State Marco Rubio was in the Caribbean when news of the shooting broke out. He told reporters the U.S. was working to verify Cuba's assertions before figuring out how to respond.
We will know shortly, and we will know quickly, many more facts about this incident than we know right now. The majority of the facts being publicly reported are those by the information provided by the Cubans. We will verify that independently, and as we gather more information, then we'll be prepared to respond accordingly.
In a few moments, we will speak with Brian Fonseca. He is the director of the Jack D. Gordon Institute for Public Policy at Florida International University. First, let's go to NBC News reporter Ed Augustin, who is in the Cuban capital of Havana. Ed, good morning. First of all, just walk us through this account by Cuban authorities and their description of how this deadly confrontation unfolded.
Yeah, around about 2 or 3 o'clock local time yesterday, all of us journalists in Cuba received lots of WhatsApp messages, a flurry of WhatsApp messages, because an official communique had been published by the Cuban Ministry of Interior. And it broadly said what you said in your introduction, that early in the morning yesterday, before dawn, there was a shootout approximately 1 mile off the Cuban coast, so inside Cuban waters. A speedboat with 10 people, they didn't confirm the nationalities to begin with, had, according to the Cuban authorities, opened fire on the Cuban Coast Guard, and the Cuban Coast Guard had shot back, resulting in 4 dead and many wounded. Those wounded that were taken to Cuban hospitals, we're told. Later on in the day, the Cuban government published another communique alleging that these people were terrorists and were involved in trying to get arms to the government. And that really solidified the Cuban government's line, because there has been an awful lot of drug trafficking between Florida and Cuba. There has been an awful lot of people trafficking. I think that's probably reduced now under the current administration, but certainly during Biden, we saw a lot of videos of people even coming on jet skis here and picking up family members. And that was a booming trade. It cost you $20,000 to get a family to ferret them out of the country illegally. But the third alternative people were speculating about was that this might have been very much a political act. And that's what the Cuban government said late yesterday afternoon.
Yeah,
I think it's important to put this into context. Sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that, of course, on the 3rd of January this year, Nicolas Maduro was captured and detained or abducted, depending on your politics, how you see it, and 32 Cubans died in that firefight with US Delta Force. That's a fact. And that has created a situation of tension within Cuban intelligence and military. And now there is a full-out oil blockade. The United States is not letting oil into Cuba, or hardly any in, which is hitting normal people. More people are dying. The government is very, very aware that the US is trying to overthrow it and thinks it will succeed. And so tensions are high. Tensions are very, very high, and that feeds into the context around the shootout we saw yesterday.
Let's talk more about the U.S. response, because Secretary of State Rubio says the U.S. is still trying to work out and figure out what exactly happened. I mean, what else did we hear from Secretary Rubio?
To be honest, the U.S. government reply was surprising. Everyone here in Cuba thought, oh, God, that's it. They're going to invade. I shouldn't say everyone, but a lot of normal Cubans I spoke to, because that's the feeling on the ground. And of course, there have been it goes back to the 1960s, but military invasions, Bay of Pigs, but also there have been forays in the military invasions by paramilitaries, not directly by the United States. And so the feeling here in Cuba is, wow, things are really, really bad. And people are worried about invasion. I have a source that lives near a military installation. His wife is pregnant, and he tells me every night they wonder if the military installation is bombed, will they go with it, or will the neighbors kind of function as a buffer? The real things for anyone to have to imagine. And so that's the mood in Cuba. And yet people were surprised when Marco Rubio, a hardline Cuban-American politician, Republican from Florida, the first ever Cuban-American Secretary of State, a person that right now is driving policy, regime change policy towards the island. People were surprised when he frankly downplayed it. And he didn't decide to politicize it. He said an investigation is taking place. We're going to know more in short course, as your viewers saw earlier on. Analysts I've spoken to said that might be because the U.S. is rather busy with Iran at the moment.
All right, Ed Augustin, we appreciate your reporting. Thank you so much. Let's continue this conversation with Brian Fonseca to talk more about all this. Brian, good morning. Based on what we know so far, what we're hearing from the Cuban authorities, how concerned are you by this incident? Just what was your initial reaction?
Yeah, I mean, the way that the Cuban government framed it, eventually it came out and framed it as sort of a counterterrorism, protection of territorial sovereignty, asserting that it had the right to protect itself and defend itself, drawing it in many ways to the arguments that, perhaps the U.S. has made in terms of its ability to pursue its respective interests. And so I think the Cuban government came out and certainly I think Washington was is being calibrated in this particular context. I mean, if there were U.S. citizens involved in this, that changes the calculation in terms of how the U.S. may calibrate a response. And so I think certainly Washington is not buying the story that Cuba's put out. And so it wants to do its own due diligence before it begins to calibrate a response to Cuba. And I think certainly the idea of using or responding with the military may be difficult right now, given so much of the attention is, in fact, on Iran, as was previously mentioned. But I also think that, again, the U.S. is calibrating its response because it is working right now to apply coercion in the form of diplomatic and economic coercion to affect some form of change on the island.
Yeah, I want to ask you more. I mean, what do you make of the U.S. response? I mean, Ed mentioned some Cubans thought the U.S. would invade after this. They were surprised it was so tempered. What do you think the response could eventually be?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now the U.S. has kind of shifted military assets to other parts of the world, engaging in sort of the use of military power as an instrument of statecraft in other parts of the world. And so it's not necessarily positioned well for a full-on invasion in Cuba. But I think there's been this expectation that given the U.S. has used the military as an instrument of power in Venezuela, that Cuba would be next and that the military might be used, and that some provocation like this, a lethal strike off the coast of Cuba, might unlock the U.S. in using the military to pursue its respective interests, which include regime change in Cuba. And so I think that, again, the calibrated response that the State Department's taking, that Secretary Rubio mentioned, I think is, again, discovery. Let's see what the facts are. If there are U.S. citizens involved in this, that changes the equation. The Cuban government is saying that these are Cuban nationals that took a U.S. boat and pursued some form of terrorist acts or was in the process of pursuing something like that. And so that's why the Cuban government has framed it as counterterrorism. But it certainly doesn't help de-escalate the tensions between the United States and Cuba. And I think the United States for now is going to continue to rely on political and economic coercion to try to affect some form of change.
Talk to us about just the backdrop to this incident, the energy crisis Cuba is embroiled in right now because of that U.S. oil embargo. I mean, what are conditions like on the island? And just realistically, where do things stand when it comes to relations between Cuba and America?
Yeah, so, I mean, first and foremost, this is against the backdrop of course, the January 3rd military operation that captured Nicolas Maduro and brought him to the U.S. to stand trial on drug trafficking charges. You haven't seen the same kind of rhetoric against Cuba. It's largely been about democracy and repression of Cuban people. So not the same type of narrative around, combating narco-terrorism, focused on, that was focused on sort of the case against Maduro. So it's slightly different. But I think there's this expectation, and even President Trump said it in his press release post the Maduro capture, that Cuba may be on the books. And so I think there's been this anticipation that the U.S. is going to somehow, work to dislodge the regime in Cuba. And I think for now, what the U.S. is doing is it's enforcing the embargo. It stopped the flow of energy from Venezuela to Cuba, which was helping prop Cuba up and keep Cuba sort of the lights on in Cuba. It blocked Mexico's attempts to try to to try to ship oil to Cuba to alleviate some of the pressure. And I think this is about economic coercion. This is about enforcing the embargo that the United States has had in an effort, to squeeze sort of the regime, turn the lights off. I mean, that's the expectation, is that the lights are going to go off and that there's going to be, some demand for change. And the U.S. has to be careful, because if it's a total collapse, there could be a major, responsibility of the United States to respond with humanitarian assistance, working issues around migration.
All right. Brian Fonseca, we appreciate your expertise. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Later today, for the first time in history, a first lady will be forced to appear before a congressional committee under subpoena. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton will be behind closed doors today when she answers questions from the House Oversight Committee. This is part of the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. Then her husband, Bill Clinton's turn comes on Friday, the first time a former president will be deposed by Congress. The Clintons have not been accused of any wrongdoing, but Democrats and Republicans agreed they should testify after Bill Clinton's name and picture appeared hundreds of times in the Epstein files. NBC's Alice Barr joins us from Washington with details on this. Alice, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. The Clintons have long said they have nothing to add to Congress's Epstein investigation, with the former president saying he cut ties before learning of any Epstein crimes. But beginning today, they'll sit for questions in 2 historic depositions. In an unprecedented move, former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton preparing for congressional depositions under subpoena to answer questions in the House Oversight Committee's Jeffrey Epstein investigation, both happening in New York beginning today with Hillary Clinton.
It's going to be the video, and we'll release it. The public will see every second of the deposition.
The couple has not been accused of any wrongdoing, denies knowledge of Epstein's crimes, with Hillary saying she doesn't recall ever meeting him, and has demanded all Epstein documents be made public. Photos of the former president appear in Epstein files the Justice Department has released, and ultimately members of both parties agreed they should appear.
Anyone that has information about Jeffrey Epstein or spent any time with him, I think it's important to ask questions.
It comes as NBC News has confirmed an NPR report that summaries and notes are missing from the DOJ's released Epstein files regarding 3 FBI interviews with a Jeffrey Epstein accuser who also made allegations of sexual abuse against President Trump in 2019. The woman alleges both happened in the 1980s when she was 13 years old, according to a source familiar with the investigation. It's not clear if that allegation against the president is in the missing files. The Justice Department saying it released everything it can make public, but would review any concerns raised. The White House pointed to the DOJ's previous statement that some documents, quote, contain untrue and sensationalist claims against President Trump submitted to the FBI right before the 2020 election. President Trump forcefully denies any wrongdoing related to Epstein. And this all comes amid growing public fallout for a series of high-profile figures whose ties to Jeffrey Epstein have been revealed as the Justice Department rolls out its files, though prosecutors there haven't brought any other criminal charges so far. Joe?
All right, Alice, thank you so much. In the wake of President Trump's State of the Union address, there are mounting questions over what he can actually accomplish between now and the midterm elections. In his speech before Congress, the president proclaimed that he was leading a golden age of America. Even though it was a record-long speech, the president offered few new policy ideas as he faces slipping poll numbers. For more on the latest in politics, let's bring in NBC News senior national politics reporter Jonathan Allen. John, good to have you with us. Let's start with where things stand in the days following the State of the Union address. The president called on Congress to pass a few legislative measures, including a potential ban on stock trades by lawmakers. That actually got some bipartisan support. But usually these speeches, they're a laundry list of proposals designed to propel his agenda, to excite voters. Maybe the president would hit the road to push for some of these things. Given his poll numbers, the razor-thin margin he has in the House, is there a sense that he missed a chance to talk about what he was going to try and get done with the midterms looming?
Good morning, my friend. This is what Donald Trump has been doing all year for the last 13 months, basically, and certainly for the last 6 or 7 months, which is arguing that everything he's done already is putting America on track for a much stronger economy, putting America on track to be in a better place in terms of immigration, and not doing a lot to talk to him about what he will do to change his program to meet the expectations of the American public, who in poll after poll say that they are not satisfied with the state of the economy. They are not satisfied with the way he's conducting his deportation campaign. You mentioned several of the pieces of legislation that he talked about. None of them have any immediate prospects for passage in a Congress that is having difficulty even doing the basics of keeping the federal government open. The Department of Homeland Security right now has had lapsed funding for a couple of weeks. So we'll see if the president chooses after the State of the Union to try to turbocharge an agenda for the rest of the year and for the rest of his presidency. But for the moment, there is very little that he can do with Congress.
Let's talk about President Trump's pick for Surgeon General, Dr. Casey Means. She's a wellness influencer with an inactive medical license right now. She testified on Capitol Hill as part of her confirmation hearing. She took tough questions from both sides of the aisle on her stances on childhood vaccines, including Republican Bill Cassidy, who is a doctor. How did she respond to those questions, and just what did we learn about her yesterday?
The bottom line, Joe, is the main qualification for becoming Surgeon General of the United States or any other presidentially appointed position is they get 51 Senate votes. So if she doesn't have an active medical license, that's not going to stop her. Only could the Senate stop her. What we found out yesterday is that senators were particularly interested in vaccines, a various set of vaccines, and whether she believed they were effective or should be recommended. So you have hepatitis B, you have flu vaccine, and other vaccines. Let's take a listen to what Senator Cassidy asked her about.
Would you encourage mothers to vaccinate their children with the MMR vaccine, seeing how we've had children die in this outbreak in South Carolina?
I'm supportive of vaccination. I do believe that each patient, mother, parent needs to have a conversation with their pediatrician about any medication they're putting in their body or their children's bodies.
You're the nation's doctor. Would you encourage her to have her child vaccinated?
I'm not an individual's doctor, and every individual needs to talk to their doctor before putting a medication in their body. I absolutely am supportive of the measles vaccine, and I do believe vaccines save lives.
So she believes that vaccines save lives, but she's not willing to commit to a policy of encouraging parents uniformly to get the MMR, the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine.
We'll see where that goes from there. All right, John, good to have you with us. Thank you so much. The superintendent of the nation's second largest school district is now at the center of a federal investigation. Early Wednesday, FBI agents served search warrants at the home of LA Unified School District Chief Alberto Carvalho. They also searched the district's headquarters and a residence in South Florida linked to the investigation. The Justice Department confirmed the searches, but said the affidavit remains sealed. No one has been arrested, and Carvalho has not yet replied to NBC News' request for comment. NBC News correspondent Camila Bernal has more.
Agents in San Pedro, California, raiding this residence, serving search warrants at the home of Alberto Carvalho, the superintendent of Los Angeles Unified, the nation's second largest school district. Bags and a suitcase were carried out of the home.
I was with my wife, we were having our cup of coffee, and we heard the sirens going off.
The FBI also searching Carvalho's office at the district's headquarters and combing through a property in Florida federal officials tell NBC News is tied to the investigation. Carvalho served as the superintendent of the Miami-Dade County Public Schools for 14 years prior to taking the role in Los Angeles in 2022. He's known for speaking out against the Trump administration's immigration crackdown. Separately, federal prosecutors have an ongoing fraud case against the CEO of a tech startup with a multi-million-dollar deal with LAUSD to develop an AI chatbot, according to court records. Carvalho is not named in the case, the FBI saying in a statement that the affidavit in support of the warrant has been sealed by the court and we, therefore, have no further comment. LAUSD writing, the district is cooperating with the investigation and we do not have further information. No arrests were made in the operation. Camila Bernal, NBC News, Los Angeles.
In Arizona, authorities are continuing to sift through tips from the public as the search for Savannah Guthrie's mom, Nancy, enters day 26. Investigators were back at her home in Tucson on Wednesday. Federal law enforcement sources tell NBC News they're preparing to turn the home back over to the family. NBC News correspondent Liz Kreutz is in Tucson with the latest. Liz, good morning.
Well, hi, good morning to you, Joe. According to two law enforcement sources, investigators, after weeks of extensively searching the property, no longer feel the need to seal Nancy's home off as a crime scene or to restrict the family from being there. Because of that, the sources say that is why the investigators were at the home yesterday. They were seen, several of them standing in the doorway where that masked man was seen on the doorbell camera. Some were in the backyard analyzing things on the glass doors. They prepare to turn the home back over to the Guthries. And all of this comes on day 26 now of this search, as there continues to be a very large memorial, signs of hope and love outside of the Guthrie house, the Nancy's house. There was a woman out there praying last night that we saw. At the same time, though, we're also seeing some of the downsides of the intense public scrutiny and interest into this case. There is a gentleman named Dominic Evans, who is a local teacher here in Tucson, and he's in a band with Nancy's son-in-law. He spoke out to the New York Times about what it's been like to have his name dragged into the case by internet sleuths who, without evidence early on, deemed him a prime suspect. He said that his family has been scared as they've had to hide in their home because people have been gathered outside, and said that innocent people can be hurt because of all of this. Now, the sheriff did respond. He said he wishes that he could defend everybody who's been falsely accused, and said his advice to the Evans family is to potentially consider getting a lawyer and suing for libel. Meanwhile, now investigators continue to go through the hundreds of new tips, many of them that have come in since Savannah announced that $1 million reward for any information that leads to the return of her mom. We talked to experts who assured us that people really can do this anonymously. They can do it both by phone and online for the FBI, and also through Crime Stoppers, which is run by volunteers. And all you do is create a profile, or anonymously, you go on, you submit your tip, you get a unique PIN number, and you can track whether or not you won the reward through that PIN number. If you do get a reward, you can take it and go to a neutral location, often a post office, to retrieve your reward, likely in cash. All you have to do is give that PIN number. No ID, nothing. You can get that reward, truly, experts say, without anyone knowing who you are. Back to you.
All right, Liz, thank you. Taking a look outside, some wet weather is expected in parts of the South today. Let's get a check on your morning News Now weather with Angie Lastman. Angie, good morning.
Hi, Joe. Good morning to you. We've got some rain and even a couple of flakes flying across parts of the country. Specifically, if you look from the mid-Atlantic back west across parts of Kentucky, Tennessee, it is a wet morning. Places like Knoxville, Raleigh, starting to see some of that. Even Atlanta, you're in and out of those showers. And again, some of those snowflakes are farther to the north. Parts of Ohio and Indiana included in that. So it could be a little slick on the roads there. This is why we've got this system that's kind of sliding to the east, that front bringing us the showers and storms across that region, but then eventually farther south here as we get into the afternoon and even evening hours. The good news is if you live across the Northeast, we're going to stay dry. We're not looking at any precipitation. I know it's been a busy couple of days for folks up there, so you'll get a bit of a break. We will, however, see the wet weather stick around the Southeast even as we get into tomorrow. That That front will slide a little farther to the south, and it does bring some rain across the state of Florida. And by the way, the Southeast and Florida needing this rain. So this will be beneficial for a lot of folks, even though it will potentially be annoying for any outdoor plans you may have. And as we get through the day tomorrow, I think we'll pick up about an inch of rain across parts of Alabama, South Carolina, Georgia, Valdosta, Montgomery, Charleston, all included in that, and about a half an inch or up to an inch or so across places like Florida. Meanwhile, who turned up the heat? We've got potential records over the next couple of days across most of the West. So notice parts of the South, Texas, Laredo, we'll see San Angelo, Albuquerque, across Colorado, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, all of those locations, potential records over the next couple of days. It spans 9 states. So we will see quite warm conditions for places like Albuquerque. You'll be into the upper 70s. Dallas, you're going to hit those mid 80s by Saturday. It's the 70s for Wichita. Denver, 70 degrees on Saturday. I have a feeling some people will be doing some spring-like skiing across that region. And even, Joe, in New York City, 48 degrees on Saturday. People are going to go bananas, I have a feeling. And we will see a whole lot of melting across this region when it comes to the snow as well. So
sorry, it's funny
news.
because everything is melting right now during the day. And there's so much scaffolding in New York that you're just constantly getting dripped on no matter where you go.
You know what they call it in New York City? New York juice. You never know what air conditioner or scaffolding it's coming from.
That's kind of gross when you think of it that way, but
indeed.
We all learned something there. Thanks, Angie. Appreciate it. Much more to come here on Morning News Now later this hour. Taking the stand, the star witness in a landmark lawsuit against social media companies set to testify today. More on the case that could set a precedent across every platform. Up first, after the break, the U.S. and Iran back for round 3 of nuclear negotiations. We will have the latest. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Geneva this morning, U.S. and Iranian officials are meeting for a 3rd round of indirect diplomatic talks. Just yesterday, the U.S. Department of Treasury sanctioned more than 30 people, entities, and vessels. U.S. officials say those who were sanctioned enabled forbidden Iranian petroleum sales and ballistic missile production. Now, during his State of the Union address, President Trump threatened to attack Iran again to prevent the Islamic Republic from developing a nuclear weapon. Iran condemned President Trump's remarks as lies Tuesday night and denied seeking to develop a nuclear weapon. And of course, all this comes as the U.S. continues to build up a major military presence in the Middle East. NBC News chief international correspondent Keir Simmons joins us now. He's been keeping tabs on these talks. Keir, first, what can you tell us about these new sanctions from the U.S. against Iran?
Yeah, Joe, a new wave of sanctions targeting the oil shipments, those kind of clandestine oil shipments that we now have come to know so well from Iran. It comes, as you say, after Trump made those 2 striking accusations against Iran during his State of the Union address this week. First, that Iran was starting all over with its nuclear program, and second, that Iran is working to build missiles that will soon reach the United States. As you say, President Trump has amassed a huge amount of firepower in this region, while saying during the State of the Union his preference is to solve this problem through diplomacy, and that's what's happening today. Diplomacy. Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff, President Trump's envoy, and his son-in-law are there right now with those indirect talks with the Iranians in Geneva.
And Keir, we know ahead of these talks, Trump administration officials said Iran has to make major concessions on its nuclear program. That includes abandoning uranium enrichment to avoid any military action. What more do we know about just where both sides are drawing a red line?
You know, that's a great question, because it does seem to shift a little bit, I'll be honest, on both sides. What appears to be the position on the U.S. side is that it is demanding zero enrichment capability. Now, what the Iranians seem to be saying is that it will offer a reduction in its highly enriched uranium, so kind of diluting it, if you like. It's not prepared, though, to send that uranium outside of Iran, and is saying that it still wants a civil nuclear program. Of course, if you're on the US side, you say, well, if you were always only interested in a civil nuclear program, how come you have uranium enriched to far greater degree than you would need for something like that? And then beyond that, there are the questions of the ballistic missiles, the Iranian ballistic missiles that can strike Israel, can strike bases in places like where I am in the Gulf. And, of course, Iran is effectively using those missiles to threaten the U.S., just as President Trump is threatening Iran. Whether or not that's part of what America wants is a removal of all of Iran's missiles. That's something that Iran has ruled out too. So there are private conversations. They are behind closed doors. But that's kind of some of the picture.
Yeah, and what we know is, I mean, the president just made it clear Tuesday night a U.S. strike against Iran is most definitely still on the table. If that does happen, do we have an idea of just what kind of offensive capability Iran has to respond?
Well, yeah, we do. I mean, one aspect of this is that the Iranians have been carrying out exercises near the Strait of Hormuz, close to where I am. Now, that is a choke point for 20% of the world's oil and gas travels through there. So to close that strait, even for some days, it was not clear how long Iran could do it for. That would have an impact on oil prices on the world economy. And then there are those threats by Iran to target, for example, US bases in this region using its ballistic missiles. And remember, we did hear from President Trump during that State of the Union that claim that Iran is trying to develop intercontinental ballistic missiles that could target the United States. Now, if it could do that, then clearly the US would consider that to be a serious threat. A US agency last year said it was 10 years away from that, but that may be another aspect of why President Trump ultimately decides to strike Iran. Joe.
All right, Keir Simmons, thank you so much. Nearly 4 months after the U.S. brokered a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas, Gaza is still in ruins. At the World Economic Forum last month, President Trump introduced images of a Gaza rebuilt from scratch, showing slides of skyscrapers and phased development plans. But the reality in Gaza remains bleak. Entire neighborhoods, as you can see here, have been reduced to rubble, and Palestinians continue to live in tents as deadly violence rages on. NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel had a chance to cross into Gaza and brings us a restricted look under escort by Israeli Defense Forces.
We are about to enter into the Gaza Strip. We are going with the Israeli military. It is very limiting. It is not ideal, but for now, it is the only way that we can get at least a glimpse of what the situation is like in Gaza. Many journalist outfits, including NBC, have complained about this. We have requested for independent access to be granted many times, but it has never been allowed. According to President Trump's much celebrated ceasefire, the war here in Gaza is supposed to be over and reconstruction underway. But when you're here, it's clearly not the case. There's no bulldozers here. Nobody's clearing the debris. It just looks like this everywhere you go.
Gaza is now divided roughly in half by what is called the Yellow Line. All Palestinians, more than 2 million people, must stay in their section close to the sea. The other half of Gaza is under Israeli military control. Gaza's health ministry says more than 600 Palestinians have been killed since the October ceasefire. Many of them, the officials say, were shot dead by Israeli soldiers while attempting to cross the Yellow Line. Israel says the Yellow Line is clearly marked with concrete blocks and that it only fires on militants attempting to carry out attacks.
Why are Israeli troops still here?
Because Hamas is still there. There's Hamas terrorists right there, thousands of them, wanting to kill our civilians just a mile away from here. And our mission right here, by the way, this is part of the agreement, but our mission right here is to make sure they don't cross and murder Israeli civilians like they promised they would do again if they get the chance.
The IDF allowed a small group of reporters into Gaza to show us a Hamas tunnel that Israel says it just discovered.
And here is the entrance itself. Gonna have to crawl at this stage. And according to the Israeli military, this tunnel, which hasn't been fully explored yet, went from Gaza City almost all the way to the Israeli border. It doesn't seem like these concrete supports, these walls, even shifted. So they were quite a feat of engineering. Oh, they just keep going and going. This is interesting. In here is a little toilet, and they sink. Now here's the question, will it still work? No, it does not work. But it has a tile floor, it has a flush toilet. So this was built, I don't want to say for comfort, but it was clearly built to last. I've done many interviews with hostages, freed hostages, their family members, and they all talk about the conditions, the horrific conditions living in these tunnels, being held hostage in these tunnels. And having just been down here for maybe 20 minutes now, I can tell you, which is nothing, I can tell you it's already starting to feel suffocating. This part of Gaza was called Al-Shujaiya. It was a densely crowded neighborhood in Gaza full of Palestinian homes. These were all homes. They're barely recognizable. They just look like piles of concrete.
A crew in Gaza working for NBC News found some former residents of Al-Shujaiya living on the Palestinian side of the Yellow Line, in tents. This is revenge, says Iman Hizik. Our children have been killed, our homes have been destroyed, our lives are shattered. Her grandchildren now pick through garbage to find fuel to cook with. If the Israelis wanted to destroy something, they could have targeted a limited area or a military site. But no, they destroyed everything. Everything, she said. President Trump just last week announced his Board of Peace has raised $7 billion to rebuild Gaza. But 4 months into the ceasefire, there is no reconstruction here and violence continues. Nothing like the prosperity that was promised. Richard Engel, NBC News.
Coming up, financial help on the federal level. President Trump introducing some new initiatives meant to help save you money from birth to retirement. We're going to break down how they work next on Morning News Now. We're back with those new federal initiatives announced by President Trump that aim to help Americans save more money. The president used his State of the Union address on Tuesday night to highlight an upcoming federal savings program called Trump Accounts and an online marketplace already running called Trump RX. Now, those Trump accounts are investment accounts for U.S. citizens under 18 years old that offer certain tax advantages. They're designed to build long-term financial security. Trump RX is a government-hosted website that points Americans to drug makers' direct-to-consumer websites where they can purchase medications like the mega-popular GLP-1 weight loss drugs at a discounted price. For more on these initiatives, we're joined now by our resident economy expert, editor-in-chief of Investopedia, Caleb Silver, also the chief business editor for People Inc. Good to have you with us, Caleb. So let's start with the Trump accounts. Those are set to launch July 5th, though we've already seen a lot of news about that and the Dell family chipping in on it and all those things. So walk us through just what they are, who's eligible, how people can sign up, because they can do that right now, right?
You can do it now, and they're referred to as Trump baby accounts because they are for young children born between January 1st, 2025 and December 31st, 2028, the term for this president. And they're part of the big, beautiful Tax Act of 2025. The government will do a $1,000 contribution into what they call a Trump account for kids. It's like a traditional IRA. It invests in low-cost index funds run by Vanguard, run by BlackRock and others. And families can contribute up to $5,000 a year in addition, and some employers can contribute up to $2,500 a year. It's tax-deferred growth, but when the child turns 18, they can access it. Then they'll have to pay taxes on it, unless, in some cases, they use it for a first-time home purchase, maybe education and medical expenses.
What are the tax benefits of doing this? I mean, is this something you would recommend to parents to consider?
Yeah, anything where you can grow your returns tax-free until you take them out is a good thing. You're not taxed every year on if there's an increase in those returns. You do have to ultimately pay taxes. Again, there are some stipulations if you're using it for education or medical expenses. But on the surface, this is a good idea. This helps families get a savings and an investing plan started for their kids that could turn into a significant amount of money if they contribute year after year.
The president said it could reach $100,000. How hard would that be? I mean, you would have to contribute a lot.
Yeah,
right?
Families would have to contribute a lot to get that compounding going. You need big numbers to compound. So if families contribute and employers contribute, yeah, you could get to $100,000 if the market continues to provide returns.
Let's talk about Trump RX. That is already in place. Just what do we know about how it works and how people could save on prescription?
Yeah, this offers lower cost drugs through what they call the most favored nation status. Countries that have drug makers like AstraZeneca and others where we're buying drugs, U.S. consumers are buying drugs, and they're using cash to buy drugs outside of their insurance plan. So this is for people that don't have either enough insurance or no insurance. You can use coupons coupons at some pharmacies that already honor this. Not all medications are covered, but you mentioned GLP-1s. They are covered. And in the press release that the White House put out, right in the middle was how much cheaper these GLP-1s would be. Ozempic would go from $1,200 to $120, big savings for a growing blockbuster drug.
A little math. The president said you could save 400, 500, 600%. That is impossible. 100% savings would make it zero. So just a reminder, that's not real. Let's also talk about these retirement savings plans for workers who don't have access to a 401k. This sounded like a new thing. I hadn't heard about this before. So
it is a new thing. It's a 401k plan. It's really a federal match, $1,000 per person for those people who work for companies in the private sector that don't have access to a 401k plan. It's modeled again after that government thrift savings plan that's already used by federal employees. It draws on that Saver Match credit, and it's part of the 22 Secure Act 2.0. So it's $1,000, and you can contribute yourself to keep adding to that. But it's another good way for people that don't have access to the traditional 401k or 403b to get started saving. Can't argue with the fact that this actually helps close the retirement gap a little bit, and it does get people to contribute as long as the government's contributing as well. It's free money.
And anyone who has a 401k will tell you if you start young and just put a little bit in, it just does add up over time.
That's the magic of compounding.
All right, Caleb, thank you so much. Good to have you with us. Coming up, tech titans on trial, and we come back, new developments in that landmark lawsuit against top social media companies as the star witness prepares to testify in court. Morning News Now. We'll be right back. It's week 3 of that closely watched social media addiction trial unfolding in Los Angeles. The 20-year-old plaintiff at the center of the case is expected to take the stand today. She was scheduled to testify yesterday, but it was delayed because lawyers spent so much time questioning her former therapist. Now, the plaintiff is known in court by her initials KGM. She's the first person to take major social media companies to trial for allegedly harming her mental health as a minor. This case could set a legal precedent for whether platforms are held liable for mental health issues in children. Joined now by NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos, who's been following this trial for us. Danny, good to have you with us. Let's start with the former therapist. She testified yesterday. She doesn't think social media is the sole driver of KGM's mental health issues, but it could have been a factor. Does that weaken the plaintiff's case?
Everyone is looking forward to the plaintiff testifying, but this therapist may have been the star witness and not for the plaintiffs. For the defense. I'll give you another quote. She testified, I believe social media she's talking about was a contributing factor, not a causation factor. If I'm the defense, I take that quote, I put it on a giant poster board or a screen, whatever the courtroom uses, and I make it the centerpiece of my closing argument, because the jury's going to be read a jury instruction that says you must find that the social media companies were a substantial factor. That's called causation. And if the plaintiff's own therapist is saying this is not a causation factor, then you arguably have your entire case right there for the defense.
Yeah, this is not just an expert. This is literally the person who is the therapist for the plaintiff.
And by the way, Joe, in our view as a plaintiff's attorney, the treating therapist, the treating provider is often much better than the expert, because the expert gets cross-examined with, you're being paid a lot to be here today. You're a hired gun. But a treating provider is someone who has first-hand knowledge.
Okay, so KGM expected to take the stand today. What do you expect here? I presume she kind of has to take the stand to prove her point, but what are the risks that come with that?
There are some risks, but really the plaintiff's case is made with the treating therapist and their experts, and the experts are coming up after the plaintiff. And unlike a criminal case, in civil cases, there are very few surprises. There may be surprises for us, the audience, the observers, but the lawyers have deposed everybody. There's not going to be any sneak attacks because everyone's already testified. So look for the cross-examination by the defense to actually be relatively gentle. They don't need to beat her up. The main points they need to make were you feeling any ill effects, any mental health effects prior to using social media, anything at all. Then look for them to establish facts about her family life and maybe establish that it wasn't the most, let's say, stable. And if they can get through that, don't beat her up too much. Don't alienate yourself in front of the jury. Move on to the expert.
Yesterday, Meta filed an opposition to one of the plaintiff's filings, arguing her mental health problems came from home, not from social media. Just walk us through what they're arguing here, what this means for the case.
The defense is putting all of their eggs into this proverbial basket. They're basically arguing what we've talked about, which is causation. Even if defendants did something wrong, the rules say that, look, even if somebody does something wrong, you still have to be the cause of someone's harm, right? So I happen to suffer from color blindness, right? I use social media. I can't blame my color blindness on social media, even if social media did something wrong. That's causation. And if the defendants didn't cause the harm, the defendants cannot be liable, even if they arguably did something wrong.
All right, Danny Savalos, good to have you with us. Thank you so much. Now for what's making financial headlines this morning, including a new recall that could really set up grillers for a summer bummer. NBC News business and economy reporter Allie Canal has your Money Minute. Good morning, Allie.
Good morning, Joe. That's right. Outdoor cooking brand Weber is recalling over 3.2 million metal wire bristle grill brushes, citing an ingestion hazard. Now, the company says the small bristles can detach and stick to the grill and then the food and risk serious internal injuries if ingested. Customers should immediately stop using the brushes and contact Weber for a replacement. Check out its website for more details. And after a blowout earnings report, NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang told CNBC, quote, the market's got it wrong when it comes to growing fears over AI. In recent months, investors have worried that AI agents could wipe out traditional enterprise software, weighing on shares of companies like ServiceNow and Synopsys. But Huang saying that agents won't replace software, arguing instead that AI will boost productivity rather than wipe out the industry. And from chips to jets, a big bet on Miami. American Airlines is investing $1 billion to expand its Miami hub, adding 17 new gates and upgrading the airport's Concourse D to handle larger planes. The move is part of a post-pandemic push to better compete with Delta and United, as Miami remains Americans' key gateway to Latin America. And as we've seen with all the delays over the past several weeks, especially with this weather, I'm sure this will be welcome news for those travelers out there.
No kidding. Airports are getting fancy. All right, Allie, thank you so much. Coming up on Morning News Now, a tight-knit community bonding over drinks, sports, and crafts.
Sports and crafting tends to lean a little bit more queer. So it's kind of like we found this place in the Venn diagram where everyone meets.
We come back, we're going to take you inside a women's sports bar that's stitching together some friendships. Stay with us. We end this hour with a women's sports bar here in New York City that's building community in some surprising ways. Wilka Bar is now combining so-called granny hobbies with watch parties on game days. It all started with one woman, a ball of yarn, and a viral TikTok. NBC News entertainment correspondent Chloe Malas went to check it out.
This New York City sports bar packed with fans on a Sunday afternoon.
Just grab a seat anywhere.
But they're not just counting scores, they're counting rows, stitches, and yards of yarn. Here at Wilka's, a bar that exclusively shows women's sports, dozens gather each month for Knit Club to work on their crafts, sip drafts, and watch the best female athletes in the world.
We talk about sports, we talk about knitting, and it's a place where you can talk to anybody.
You come with your current work in progress and just work on it around people who also want to talk about women's sports.
Knitting influencer Risa Ruth was inspired after she posted a TikTok of herself knitting alone at Wilka's while watching the WNBA. The clip went viral, but drew very different reactions.
We had people saying, oh my God, I do that too, but at home. Can you start a club? But then also a lot of angry men.
The enthusiasm drowned out the haters, and Knit Club was born. But its popularity catching its founder off guard.
I was running around like, guys, can you scoot in? Because there's benches back there. Can we make one more seat? We're out of chairs.
I decided to put my crafting skills to the test.
I need a third hand.
I know.
There you go. Oh, yeah. Okay, cool.
You did it.
Risa thinks the club's crossover appeal is key.
Both women's sports and crafting tends to lean a little bit more queer. So it's kind of like we found this place in the Venn diagram where everyone meets.
It's that inclusive culture at all levels that could be one of women's sports' biggest appeals.
One of the things that's been great about women's sports historically is that the athletes are more accessible. So you can give these products to the athletes, even if you're not a sports fan. If you're a knitting fan, then that brings you into the WNBA community as well.
Global revenue in women's sports is expected to top $2.35 billion this year, a double-digit increase from just a few years ago. And bars catering to women's sports also on the rise, with 3 opening in New York City in just the last year.
Rice's projects are getting noticed, not just by fans and crafters, but by athletes at the top of the sport. She's even gifted handmade jerseys to her favorite players.
I can't wait to wear this.
She hopes the leagues respond to the groundswell of demand for officially licensed knitting patterns she sees in her DMs every day.
I think it's so important that we aren't doing like bootleg merch, because then that profit doesn't go back to the leagues, back to the players. The investment needs to be in those players.
One crafty fan building community stitch by stitch. Chloe Malas, NBC News, New York.
The knit jerseys are very cool. All right, that's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now. Stick with us. The news continues right now. Good Thursday morning. I'm Joe Fryer. Savannah is off today. Right now on Morning News Now, simmering tensions between the U.S. and Cuba. Cuban officials say an armed confrontation involving an American-linked speedboat turned deadly off the nation's coast. We're going to bring you reaction from the Trump administration and what Cuba is saying about this latest escalation in the Caribbean. Also this morning, a pair of historic depositions. Former President Bill Clinton, along with former First Lady Hillary Clinton, both slated to testify before Congress this week. Top lawmakers demanding answers as revelations over the Clintons' appearances in the Jeffrey Epstein files plague an American political dynasty. What we expect to hear. Plus, we're getting under the skin of a potentially dangerous viral trend, the psychology behind looks maxing and why some young men are going to extremes hoping to look more physically attractive. And later in the hour, we're turning it up to 11 with this year's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominees. So who made the cut this time around and which classic groups were left off the highly coveted list? Some of the answers might surprise you. Begin this hour with renewed tensions in the Caribbean. Cuba says that its troops shot and killed 4 people on a U.S. registered speedboat that it says was violating its territorial waters. Vanna says the people on board were Cubans living in the U.S. intending to, quote, carry out an infiltration for terrorist purposes. The U.S. says it's investigating. NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez has the latest. Gabe, good morning.
It's quickly spiraling into an international incident. The Trump administration says it is trying to sort out the facts. This all comes as the U.S. has been taking dramatic steps to choke Cuba's economy and potentially topple its government. Now, it's scrambling to find out what led to this violent shootout at sea. Overnight, new accusations from the Cuban government after a deadly gunfight in Caribbean waters left 4 people dead, sparking fears of a new escalation between the U.S. and Cuba. Secretary of State Marco Rubio skeptical of Cuba's version of events.
It is highly unusual to see shootouts in open sea like that. But we're going to find out. We're not going to base our conclusions on what they've told us.
The Cuban Interior Ministry says 4 people were killed and 6 injured after Cuba's Border Patrol intercepted a speedboat that was registered in Florida. In a new statement overnight, the Cuban government says the boat's passengers were Cuban residents of the United States and accuses the passengers of intending to carry out an infiltration for terrorist purposes, adding assault rifles, Molotov cocktails, and other weapons were seized.
We obviously want to have access to these people if they are American citizens or U.S. residents. But I'm not going to speculate now because right now, still, a lot of the information that's out there is information that's been provided by the Cubans.
The shootout happened off the island's northwest coast Wednesday morning. According to Cuban officials, their border patrol approached the boat and attempted to ask the passengers for ID, but they opened fire and Cuban officers shot back.
Con matrícula de la Florida.
Cuban television says one of the country's border patrol commanders was injured and that Cuba will protect its territorial waters.
That region of the world was just like a powder cake, right? Could blow up at any time.
Tensions with the communist country just 90 miles off the Florida coast already high as President Trump has ramped up pressure in recent weeks.
Cuba is right now a failed nation.
Fuel shortages have devastated Cuba's economy, with the U.S. blocking virtually all oil shipments to the island following the American capture of Venezuela's authoritarian leader, Nicolas Maduro. The shootout survivors are being treated at a hospital in Cuba. In a statement, that country's government says the majority of the people on the boat have a known history of criminal and violent activity, but the U.S. has so far not confirmed that and is conducting its own investigation as to why they were on that boat.
All right, Gabe, thank you. Let's continue this conversation with NBC News anchor Jose Diaz-Balart. Jose, good to have you with us. This U.S.-Cuban relations, we know, were already low before all this happened. How much more tension could this now create?
It's such a great question, Joe. Good morning. And the answer to that, I think, remains to be seen, because how much more tension can there be between a government, the government in Cuba, that has been in power since the 1st of January of 1959? 67 years in power. When this government that rules Cuba took power, the United States had 48 states. Alaska and Hawaii weren't even states yet of the United States. So much time, one family has essentially been in control of that island nation. And so when we hear information coming out of that island nation, the question is, well, first of all, we have to confirm it all. But second of all, why are they saying what they're saying at this point in time? I think a lot has to do with the 3rd of January, when the United States went into Caracas and took out Nicolás Maduro. He is now awaiting trial in New York City. The relations have been certainly much more complicated, but a lot of questions still need to be answered about this boat. Using the word speedboat, it's apparently a 24-foot boat registered in South Florida. A lot of questions still remain, Joe.
Yeah, and it's clear Secretary of State Marco Rubio has those questions. He's saying the U.S. will investigate before figuring out how to respond. But, I mean, earlier this morning, we spoke with our reporter in Havana, Ed Augustin. He said Cubans were, like, bracing for a U.S. attack. They were surprised that wasn't the immediate response. What do you think could be the response, and could the fact that the boat passengers were said to be Cuban nationals rather than American citizens reduce the risk of seeing a major escalation?
Again, you know what? It's such a great question. But when the government regime, the Cuban government regime spokespeople on television yesterday, they referred to them as 4 foreign attackers. Now they're saying they're Cuban nationals. So I think if there are indeed 6 people that survived this exchange of gunfire, 1 mile off of Corralillo in Santa Clara in Cuba, there we see a map. It would be a situation where people would have to speak to them. And, you know, as far as what the Cuban people are saying and thinking about this, with all due respect to any correspondent on the island, when you have 67 years of a dictatorship, the last thing people in the island want to do is tell someone what they really think, because their reality is far different than any other.
Jose, talk to us a bit about how this U.S. oil embargo on Cuba, the fuel shortage there, is just impacting the economy. It's impacting life. How bad is the situation?
It is critical. It is critical, and it's not a situation that just came in the last year. There have been decades of deterioration of the Cuban economy. Let's remember that it is government controlled. Essentially, the economy there is family controlled by the Castro family. Raul Castro, 94 years old, is still alive and is still calling the shots. So the deterioration has increased, especially after the 3rd of January, when the United States stopped Venezuela from giving Cuba millions of barrels of oil for free. Also, Mexico has been giving Cuba free oil. That's also been shut down. So since then, they are seeing, the island has seen just deteriorating situations. There is no medicine. There is no food. You know, garbage is piled up in the streets. Electricity is something that has become a rarity. And that is only going to get worse, regardless of what the United States does, as long as that regime stays in power.
Jose, good to have you with us this morning. Thanks for joining us. All right, let's move now to New York's Hudson Valley, where a landmark moment is unfolding for a former president and former first lady. Today, in the first of two historic depositions, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton will answer questions from the House Oversight Committee. It's part of their investigation into the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. Then tomorrow, the committee will hear from her husband, former President Bill Clinton. NBC News Chief Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles joins us now from Chappaqua with more on what to expect there. Good morning, Ryan.
Hey, Joe, good morning. And the Clintons initially told the House Oversight Committee that they have nothing to contribute to this investigation. But the fact that the former president continues to pop up in the release of the Epstein files led the committee to say that they needed to appear or they could face contempt. It has never happened before. A former president and first lady forced to appear before a congressional committee under subpoena.
They're not going to be treated any differently than anyone else.
Bill and Hillary Clinton initially resisted the request of the House Oversight Committee to appear to answer questions. But as the Epstein files continued to be released and Bill Clinton's name and picture continued to pop up hundreds of times, both Republicans and Democrats agreed the couple needed to answer their questions.
Certainly any information that the former president has, I want to understand and I want to know.
The former president has not been accused of any wrongdoing, but he is among a group of powerful men whose survivors and their advocates want answers from. The couple has demanded the Justice Department release all the files connected to Epstein.
Get the files out. They are slow walking it.
The Clintons' call for transparency echoed by Capitol Hill Democrats and come as more questions have been raised about what's been released. NBC News confirming NPR's report that some documents connected to a woman whose name is redacted are missing from the publicly released files. The woman, according to a source familiar with the investigation, has alleged to the FBI that she was forced into a sex act with President Trump when she was 13. She also accused Epstein of assaulting her, also when she was 13, and spoke to the FBI 4 times about Epstein. One of those interviews appears in the files, but the other 3 do not. It's unclear if those missing interviews contain any references to Trump. Last month, the DOJ referred to, quote, untrue and sensationalist claims submitted to the FBI right before the 2020 election, and now saying it will release any documents that were improperly held back. President Trump has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing related to Epstein.
I have nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein.
Meanwhile, the fallout from Epstein is only growing. Billionaire and Microsoft founder Bill Gates apologized this week to his foundation for his past ties to Epstein, according to a recording reviewed by the Wall Street Journal, in which he also said he did not see or participate in any illegal activities. And in the United Kingdom, both former Prince Andrew and Peter Mandelson, the former ambassador to the United States, who each had ties to Epstein, are under investigation for possible misconduct in public office, unrelated to Epstein's crimes. And this deposition today will be behind closed doors, but it will be videotaped by the committee, and they have promised to release the entire videotape to the public in the very near future. You may remember that the Clintons had requested that this be held in a public hearing, but it is the committee's policy to hold these closed-door depositions first with the possibility of a public hearing in the future. And, Joe, we do know that both Republican and Democratic members of the House Oversight Committee will be here in Chappaqua for the deposition today. Hillary Clinton today, Bill Clinton tomorrow. Joe.
All right, Ryan, thank you so much. In Arizona, the search continues this morning for Savannah Guthrie's mom, Nancy. She has now been missing for 26 days. Law enforcement officials were back at Nancy's home on Wednesday. Sources tell NBC News officials are preparing to turn the home back over to the family as tips continue to pour in. NBC News correspondent Liz Kreutz is in Tucson with the latest. Liz, good morning.
Hi, Joe. Good morning to you. According to 2 law enforcement sources, after weeks of extensively searching Nancy's property, investigators no longer feel the need to seal it off as a crime scene or to restrict the family from having access to it. This comes as investigators are going through all those new tips, which experts say really can be sent in anonymously. No one needs to know who you are.
This morning, 26 days into the search, 2 federal law enforcement sources tell NBC News officials are working on turning Nancy Guthrie's home back over to her family. Several agents at the property Wednesday as part of that plan were seen in the same doorway where an armed masked man was captured on Nancy's doorbell camera. They appeared to analyze something on a sliding glass door. Local authorities also plan to restrict public parking on Nancy's street starting today. Since Nancy went missing, there's been enormous public interest, including an outpouring of love and support for the family.
Your Lord Jesus.
This woman came to pray outside the home last night. At times, though, there's also been a slew of false accusations. Dominic Evans, a local teacher and bandmate of Nancy's son-in-law, speaking to the New York Times after his name was dragged into the case by internet sleuths who, without evidence, deemed him a prime suspect. He and his wife telling the Times they've been scared numb, forced to hide out in their home. Meanwhile, the FBI now going through hundreds of new tips, many generated after Savannah and her family offered a $1 million reward for the return of their mom.
If you have a criminal record, if you're undocumented, if you have a tip in this case, that's what they want most. They're willing to overlook anything.
Former FBI Special Agent Brianna Fox walked us through how tips can be sent anonymously, both by phone and online to the FBI and through Crime Stoppers.
You can provide a tip and they will provide you a unique number or passcode. That passcode then allows you to log into their website and see the status of your tip. So if your tip, in fact, led to the identification of either Mrs. Guthrie or the conviction of a suspect, that will notify you that you have been essentially rewarded.
And she says, like, let's say you do submit a tip that then qualifies for a reward and you want to remain anonymous. The way you can get your reward is by showing up at a neutral location that's been decided, often like a post office. You will likely receive that reward in cash, and all you need to show is that unique PIN number that is associated with that tip. You do not need to show your ID. Experts say it is really not traceable. No questions asked. Joe.
All right, Liz, thank you so much. Let's get a check now on your morning news now weather. Angie Lastman is tracking some showers in the southeast for us. Angie, good morning.
Hi, Joe. Good morning. Grabbing the umbrella is going to be a must for some folks this morning. You can see a bit of rain stretching across parts of the southeast, up through the Carolinas, and back towards places like Tennessee, Kentucky, and even Ohio and Indiana, picking up some snow this morning. It's light in nature, but still could slow you down on that early morning commute. And this sticks around for the first half of the day for those regions. And then notice across parts of the southeast, we still have some rain to deal with as this front kind of slowly works its way to the east and eventually slides farther to the south tomorrow. This brings those showers and storms to Florida. That in parts of the southeast really need the rain at this point. So we'll take that beneficial rain for now over the next 2 days, and picking up anywhere from about 1/4 of an inch to up to an inch across these regions. Places like Dublin, Valdosta, you could see up to an inch of rain between today and tomorrow. Meanwhile, some really warm conditions have settled in. It feels more like spring across parts of the south and the central U.S. and even out towards the west coast. We've got Burbank, Phoenix, Albuquerque, San Angelo, all included in the potential for some records over the next couple of days. And those records span across 9 states. So we've really got some warmth that we're going to see stick around for the extended period. Notice temperatures into the 90s on Friday in Phoenix. We've got 80s and mid 80s at that for Dallas by the weekend, 83 degrees for Houston, and even the 70s for places like Denver and Wichita rolling into the weekend. And it's not just folks out there that are going to get a brief break from winter. We've got some mixed highs across parts of the Midwest and the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast even. Expected to see those temperatures into the upper 40s in New York City. Could we hit 50 degrees? Maybe. I'm hoping so. And as we look ahead to the weekend in general, the records are going to get your attention across the Southwest, but we've also got the potential for a bit of snow. I know it's not what you want to hear, but maybe Sunday into Monday, we could see that across parts of the Midwest and eventually potentially parts of the Mid-Atlantic as well as we get through the next couple of days, Joe.
40 feels like 60, so 50 will feel like 100.
I think at this point, people in the Northeast would take like 34 degrees in some spots. Just a bit of melting for the snow, but we're going to get it.
All right, cool, Angie. Thank you so much.
You got it.
Today is the first of several days of honors for the late Reverend Jesse Jackson in his longtime home of Chicago. The civil rights icon passed away last week following a long battle with Parkinson's disease. He was 84 years old. He's remembered for his activism alongside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. during the 60s, and he was by King's side when the civil rights icon was assassinated in 1968. Jackson also founded the Rainbow Push Coalition to champion rights for people of color and ran for president twice on the Democratic ticket in the 1980s. NBC Chicago reporter Kate Chappell joins us now with more. Kate, good morning. First, just how is Chicago honoring Reverend Jackson this week?
Good morning to you, Joe. A procession from the funeral home is expected to begin any minute now with Jackson's family in tow. They'll arrive here then at Rainbow Push Coalition, as you mentioned, the foundation he founded 5 decades ago. Jackson will lie in repose here for the next 2 days. We're expecting thousands of Chicagoans to pay their respects. Many already have. There's a small memorial of flowers and American flags behind me. This is a very significant location, as we mentioned. It's a pillar in this South Side neighborhood. They serve breakfast for the community. They host clothing drives, events focused on neighborhood safety and empowerment. But perhaps most notably, it's where Jackson would address a crowd for his Saturday Operation Push meetings every week. For decades, it's where we as Chicago reporters would come to hear Jackson weigh in on salient political topics, Supreme Court decisions, social justice issues. He would often hold elected leaders accountable right here on a very public stage with cameras rolling. Of course, his legacy will live on here at Rainbow Push, but he will be remembered around the country and the world for his influence in the civil rights movement. It's also worth noting, Joe, that flags are at half staff all across the state through Saturday evening to honor Reverend Jackson.
And this will be a long celebration of his life with several services planned. Walk us through the schedule over the next few days.
It will indeed. On Monday, he'll lie in state in his native South Carolina in the Capitol Rotunda there. Then formal services are expected in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday, March 4th. Then he'll be back here in Chicago for a public homegoing service in his longtime home city, the Windy City here in Chicago.
Who do we expect to be in attendance at some of these services?
We know all 5 living presidents have been invited to those services in Chicago next Friday. It's unclear if any will attend, but of course we'll be keeping an eye on that. We expect lots of local dignitaries here from the Midwest to be in attendance, and of course the many, many thousands of Chicagoans who are expected to file in over the next couple of days here.
All right, Kate Chappell, thank you so much for that report. Much more to come on this hour of Morning News Now, including a hero's welcome for stars of Team USA's gold-gilded men's hockey squad, making their NHL returns after a historic Olympic run in Milan. First, after the break, why a growing number of pregnant women are choosing not to give birth in a hospital, but rather at home. The medical complications that could arise, putting both mom and baby at risk. That's up next. We're back with new research that shows a growing number of pregnant women are choosing to give birth at home instead of a hospital. It's a trend that is raising some new questions about safety and access to emergency care. The most recent CDC data finds more than 50,000 women had planned home births in 2024. That's a 70% increase from just 10 years ago. As home births grow in popularity, some midwives want to see better coordination between them and hospitals. See, if complications arise during labor and a transfer is needed, the process can be delayed, and that puts potentially mom and baby both at risk. Joined now by NBC News health reporter Aria Bendix, who's been investigating this trend over the last year. Good to have you with us. So you spoke with many women who've had births at home. First, talk about what's driving more women to choose home over hospital.
Yeah, we're really seeing this cultural shift in how women want to give birth. Part of that is because of some distrust of mainstream medicine. We've seen in polls that's growing and growing. It's given rise to the Make America Healthy Again agenda and so-called MAHA moms who are pushing these unmedicated births. But then there are also women who just want a calmer, more personalized experience than a hospital can offer. So those are the people who are choosing this. There are also a subset of women who really don't have a choice. We're seeing the closure of labor and delivery units across the country, but specifically in rural areas. And so in those areas, maybe the midwife is the only option for a woman who wants to give birth.
Because there's not a hospital close enough to get to
Exactly.
if you suddenly start to go into labor. Several midwives told you, as we mentioned, if complications arise, it can be hard to schedule or coordinate that transfer to the hospital. Talk about why that is.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the crux of my reporting here. The more I talked to midwives, the more I learned about these challenges. Many said they called the hospital and either were dismissed or met with hostility. One midwife told me the charge nurse at the hospital simply told her, "We won't take walk-ins," which we know is illegal. Hospitals by law have to accept patients in emergencies. So it's a growing problem here, and there is concern that with the rise of home births, it will be more of an issue. Now, on the hospital side, there are some concerns about liability. They don't know these patients. They are not familiar with their medical history and haven't observed them over the course of pregnancy. So that's a concern for them. But there is really this bias that's sort of underlying the problem.
There's some fascinating numbers here, so I want to read some of them here, because certified midwives, many of them have master's degrees, are restricted from practicing in 38 states here in America. And those numbers are sort of make the U.S. an outlier globally. Midwives here in this country attend less than 13% of births. Other countries like the UK and the Netherlands, midwives attend more than 60% of births. Why are we seeing this big gap? What are some of the changes that would be needed to close that gap?
Yeah, so this is a problem that actually goes back a century. We saw these anti-midwife campaigns in the early 1900s, sort of stigmatizing the practice. That stigma still lingers today. Obviously, in the U.S., we also prioritize innovation, and hospitals can offer more in terms of pain relief or surgery. That's a good thing, but it also has left patients with maybe fewer options as we just move towards that model exclusively. The good news here is that there are really clear solutions to this problem. One is just to integrate midwives into the hospital system, and we're seeing that trend grow over time. Another is for hospitals to partner with birth centers. So they're essentially this middle ground center between a hospital and a home birth that patients have the option in some parts of the country to go to.
Yeah, go ahead.
And the third option is just the easy one. Hospitals, doctors, and midwives can work together and come up with these plans and communicate better.
There you go. That's imagine that if we just talk things out.
Exactly.
No surprise, social media is driving a lot of this greater interest in home births. And sometimes social media is not the best place to get your medical advice. So what should people consider or know before they do make this decision?
Yeah, the most important thing is you want a midwife who is licensed and who you really trust, someone who's going to work with you to come up with that plan. If there's an emergency, where do we go and how soon do we want to leave for the hospital? You also want a midwife who's going to be honest with you about whether you're a good candidate for a home birth. If you're carrying twins, you have gestational diabetes, at risk of preeclampsia, you are probably not a good candidate, and you want a midwife who's honest about that. And just like you don't want a hospital that's antagonistic toward the midwife, you don't want a midwife that's antagonistic toward the hospital.
Good advice there. All right, Aria Bendix, thank you so much. And you can read much more of her reporting on NBCnews.com. Check it out. Crystal clear message of unity and equality blossoming in the city of brotherly love. In the face of a recent rash of queer contention from the Trump administration, Philadelphia now welcoming its LGBTQ plus community with open arms. We'll explain how they're doing it next. We're back now with a closer look at what's making news in the world of politics this morning, starting with President Trump's choice for Surgeon General, facing tough questions on Capitol Hill. NBC News senior national politics reporter Jonathan Allen joins us with more. John, good morning.
Hey, Joe, nothing could inoculate Casey Means from the Senate yesterday. Means is the president's pick for Surgeon General. She's a longtime ally of Health Secretary RFK Jr., and like him, she's a skeptic about traditional medicine. That gave senators all the opening they needed to poke, prod, and jab at her views, particularly on vaccines. Means got tough questioning from Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders and from the Health Committee Chairman Bill Cassidy. She refused to rule out vaccines as a cause of autism. And while she said that flu shots do prevent deaths, she declined to give a universal recommendation for them to be given. If the committee approves of Means, the next step would be a Senate floor vote. Also yesterday, Vice President J.D. Vance stepping into his new role as the White House fraud czar. Vance announcing that the White House is pausing $250 million in Medicaid funds for Minnesota. Vance and Dr. Oz, the head of the agency that oversees Medicaid, say they want the state to come up with a credible plan to combat fraud. Then they say that's when they'll release the money. But Congress has the power to direct cash, and the Medicaid funds are marked for Minnesota. I asked Vance about that at the press conference yesterday, and he said he is, quote, quite confident that the administration has the legal authority to hold up the money. It seems likely Congress and the courts will be asked to weigh in. The Senate voted not to weigh in on reopening the Homeland Security Department yesterday. Majority Republicans needed 60 votes to end debate on the matter, and they got only 50. John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, the only Democrat to vote with the GOP. Senate Majority Leader John Thune said conversations are ongoing, but obviously no breakthrough yet. He added, quote, I hope that we get it funded. Well, Joe, hope as always, still doing a whole lot of the heavy lifting in Washington.
Yeah, hope will not go out of business anytime soon there. All right, Sean, thanks so much. Appreciate it. A new space dedicated to LGBTQ plus visitors, businesses, and community connections is now open in the heart of Philadelphia. The Philly Pride Visitor Center is designed to highlight inclusive destinations, cultural institutions, and the city's deep roots in the fight for LGBTQ plus rights. Its opening follows the temporary removal of the pride flag at the Stonewall National Monument in New York and the growing political battle over public recognition of queer rights. Philadelphia leaders say this new hub is meant to send a clear message of welcome and belonging in the city of brotherly love. Joining me now is Catherine Ott Lovell, President and CEO of the Philadelphia Visitor Center and Philadelphia 250. Catherine, good morning. Good to have you with us. Congratulations on this. I mean, tell me, what kind of impact do you hope this space will have for the Philly community and for those who visit?
Yeah, we hope that, this will not just build Philadelphia's brand as a great tourism destination, but as a welcoming city. We want every single person to know that not only are they welcome in Philadelphia, but they're wanted here. We want them to come and experience everything our city has to offer, especially our experiences for the LGBTQ plus community.
So tell me, if someone visits the Visitor Center, what will they see? What will they experience?
Yeah, so not only is it a visitor center where you can get information and access to all of the attractions and small businesses and restaurants owned and run by LGBTQ individuals, but it's actually a mini museum. So you get a walk through Philadelphia's own LGBTQ history, the role that our city and activists in our city played in the gay rights movement going back 50 years or more. So it's really a great stroll through that history, but also very much about the present experiences that people can have in Philly.
I'm going to ask you more about that history in a moment, but I also want to kind of talk about what we're seeing right now. We had these protests at Stonewall in New York after the Trump administration forced the national park there to remove its pride flag. Talk about why a dedicated space like this matters right now.
Yeah, well, you heard it from our governor, Josh Shapiro, yesterday. The state and the state tourism office here in Pennsylvania is the sponsor of this visitor center. And Governor Shapiro said that, we are doubling down. The Commonwealth is doubling down on our efforts to welcome and invite LGBTQ individuals to our Commonwealth and to our Philadelphia region. This is a really important time for folks to know that they are wanted, they are welcome, they are safe, and there are incredible experiences, incredible ways for them to make memories here and have wonderful experiences with their friends and their families.
With you being in the middle of this opening, when you heard about what happened with the flag at Stonewall a few weeks ago, I mean, what was your reaction?
Yeah, we need more flags. Philly. So, when you come into the Philly Pride Visitor Center, you're just going to see a beautiful representation, a beautifully colorful representation of what makes our city special, what makes the LGBTQ community in Philly special. And it certainly involves flags and it certainly involves color. So, like I said, we're leaning into all of it and making sure that folks know that Philly is the place to be. We have such rich and incredible experiences, from our restaurants to our attractions, our hotels. It's a place where love is really at the heart of Philadelphia. It's in our name, the city of brotherly love. And we believe that and try to exhibit that every single day.
We have like a minute left here, but walk us through some of just the key moments of history where Philly has been on the forefront of the fight for queer rights.
Yeah, well, one of the co-founders of this visitor center and a gentleman who really helped us craft it and the messaging behind it is Mark Siegel. Mark Siegel is the founder of the Philadelphia Gay News. He was at Stonewall. He's been an activist for over 50 years, one of the founders of the gay liberation movement. And, Mark was integral to making sure that we got this story right, to make sure that we're not just talking about, the national history of the LGBTQ rights movement, but the history in Philadelphia and the people that stood by him and continue to make history today in ensuring that everybody has equal rights and everybody is respected and loved when they come to Philadelphia.
Mark is the best and also played a key role in helping to create the visitor center here in New York across from the Stonewall National Park. Catherine Ott Lovell, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Congratulations and appreciate your time.
Thank you, you guys. Have a great day.
All right, coming up, it is a viral new trend making the rounds on social media that has some young men going to concerning lengths to make themselves more physically attractive. We're going to dig into the psychology behind looks maxing, as it's known, and the warning signs parents need to know. That's next. Stay with us. We're back now with a potentially dangerous trend that's gaining popularity among teen boys and young men. It's called looks maxing and involves taking drastic, even dangerous steps to enhance your physical appearance. NBC News correspondent Stephen Romo has more.
Looks maxing, a once obscure online trend, is moving into the mainstream. Appealing mainly to boys and young men, it's an effort to maximize your looks, often taken to the extreme. The goal, to achieve what looks maxers call ascension, or what they consider the optimal measure of beauty.
We're operating in a society that's extremely shallow.
Kareem Shami is a looks maxing influencer with more than 2 million followers across social media.
We're not saying go past your genetic limits and go into extreme measures, but try to optimize your lifestyle around your appearance.
So what is the ideal male face? Controversial looks maxer Clavicular says he has an idea.
The most attractive man in the world, I would say that in terms of, harmony percentage, it's like a very objective thing. This is not really based on like an opinion of mine. Would be Matt Bomer.
The actor's looks celebrated in online forums where looks maxers discuss their ideal appearance, a chiseled jawline, specific facial ratios, and eyes 1 eye width apart. Bomer himself does not appear to be affiliated with the movement. And while some methods are focused on skincare or facial exercises,
start with your preferred facial cleanser.
Clavicular says he went to extreme measures to achieve his desired looks.
I've done like a lot of things like fat dissolvers, like I've injected lipolysis agents into my face, was a big one. And bone smashing.
And he's not alone. Bone smashing has become increasingly popular.
Do you guys know about bone smashing?
People taking massage guns or even hammers to the face.
Smash them balls, baby!
All to cause minor damage to the bone underneath in hopes that it will heal in a more pronounced way.
You're basically throwing the dice and hoping that it goes back the way you want it to, but you have no idea how your bones are going to rejoin themselves. We have no idea what the long-term implications are.
Experts say it's about more than just vanity.
In your research, have you found a negative mental health impact from being involved in this community?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, there's a lot more negative mental health ramifications. They're developing body issues that they didn't have when they first entered the community. And they're seeing their body is fundamentally a very flawed and imperfect thing that is going to ruin their lives.
And looks maxing is popular in online forums that often perpetuate dangerous concepts like misogyny, nationalism, even racism.
Race absolutely influences how these men are judging attractiveness. So every man of color is recommended to improve his attractiveness by making himself appear more white.
But despite the controversy, the industry surrounding looks maxing is growing, with websites dedicated to selling supplements and products.
If you were talking to a parent of a 16-year-old who's worried about this trend, what would you tell them?
Putting in the emphasis that they deserve to be loved no matter how they look, I think, is probably the most important thing.
Stephen Romo, NBC News.
All right, then, let's talk more about this trend with clinical psychologist Dr. Jennifer Hartstein. Doctor, good to have you with us as always. So as we saw in the piece there, it is becoming more popular. For mental health professionals, what are you saying about how big of a problem this has become, especially among young men?
I think what we're seeing in some weird way, right, is kind of young men are catching up with the issues we've been talking about for young women for a very long time, right? So here we are. It is definitely becoming more prevalent. We're seeing it much more. And there are, as noted in that piece, like so many more mental health ramifications than we're even thinking about, and we need to be addressing it with these boys so it doesn't continue to get worse.
Lots of people, of course, are going to take pride in their appearance and try to look their best, and that's understandable. At what point does it seem to cross over into something that's more concerning?
Well, we want to think about what that looks like. And so there are some really clear things to pay attention to, like, are they isolating more? Maybe they're spending hours and hours looking at themselves, focused on their appearance, going to the gym, and that's taking them away from things that they used to do and enjoy. Are they restricting their food intake? Are they really limiting their dietary usage, whatever they're eating? They're keeping it really small to lose weight. And are they engaging in what they call this hard maxing, which is the bone damage, which is really going to such extremes to get to this level of appearance that really, we don't know if it works. It can really break your face. It can break your bones, all these things. As we know it, we don't know what it's going to actually do in the long run. So does it even work?
Yeah. So you mentioned some things to be on the watch for. I mean, just what's your message to parents about the warning signs they should be paying attention to see if their child is being influenced at all by this trend?
Yeah, the red flags are really important to pay attention to. We know that the mental health ramifications are large: increased depression, increased anxiety, feelings of worthlessness, body dysmorphia, really important things to pay attention to. Are they more withdrawn from their friends? Are you hearing more of this misogynistic language that you haven't heard from before, which is one of the big influences? And are they just so obsessed that they cannot see past that? And these are things we really need to jump in as early as possible to address.
What are the things that parents can do that they can say to just help their kids feel confident about how they look? Keeping in mind, I know sometimes when someone doesn't feel good about their appearance and you tell them, oh, they look so great, they look good, they don't always accept that very well. So what can you do?
Well, and the truth is that doesn't work, right? Like if we're trying to get you unfocused from your appearance, telling you that you are beautiful or you're handsome doesn't work. So let's focus on kind of the process of things of, oh, you want to be improving yourself. What's the greater good that you can do than just only on your appearance? I read about building a strengths board, which is, instead of a vision board, something that highlights all the things that really are like strong, powerful qualities that your young man in your life has. And so they can see that there are all these great things that they're doing. I think the most important thing is lean in with curiosity, so you understand why this is important to your son or the young men in your life, so that you can have open discussions about it and help them see that there's more to life than just that.
Important conversation. Dr. Jennifer Hartstein, good to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Let's get to some financial news this morning, including Paramount's latest take on that possible deal for Warner Brothers Discovery. NBC News business and economy reporter Allie Canal is here with your Money Minute. Here we go again. Allie, good morning.
Here we go again. It never stops. Paramount making the latest case to its investors right in the middle, of course, of that bid for Warner Brothers Discovery. We have CEO David Ellison saying in the company's latest earnings release that acquiring WBD would be an accelerant to its longer-term growth strategy. Paramount just restarted talks with the media giant after sweetening its offer to buy WBD outright for $31 a share. Netflix is also in the running here with a deal already on the table, except Netflix wants to acquire the company's studios and streaming assets. And over at Samsung, privacy just got an upgrade. The company unveiled new display tech that blocks shoulder surfing on a per-app basis. This allows users to hide messages or banking apps from side angles. The feature will be available on the high-end Galaxy S26 Ultra smartphone. And Snapchat wants its own award season moment. The company announced its first ever creative awards, the Snappies, set for March 21st. The show will celebrate everything from Breakout Creator of the Year to Best Storyteller. It's the latest move by social media companies to position themselves as full-fledged entertainment players. We know this is a trend, especially among those creators that want to be taken seriously in Hollywood. Yeah. We also had award shows for TikTok and Instagram.
There you go.
So Snapchat wants to get in on the trend.
Everyone's jumping into it. Yep. All right, Allie, thank you so much. Coming up, speaking of honors, it's that time of year again. Nominees for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame have hit the airwaves. So which of your favorites made the cut and who got snubbed? We're going to dig into the guest list next on Morning News Now. Finally this hour, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has announced its short list of nominations for the 2026 class of inductees. Includes 17 nominees across nearly every genre. Among those on the list, Phil Collins, Mariah Carey, Lauryn Hill, and Shakira. For a closer look at this year's list, let's bring in Jason Lipschutz. He is the Billboard's co-chief content officer. Joins me here on set. Good to have you with us. So 17, we can't go through all 17, but in your minds, who do we really need to know about and talk about right now?
It's interesting because you have the first-time nominees, right? You have Phil Collins there for the first time, Melissa Etheridge, but then you also have those trying to break through after a couple of nominees, Oasis, Mariah Carey. So it's a really interesting mix this year of, oh, they've never been nominated before, and also, how are they not in yet?
Right, exactly. So walk us through, as you say, some have gone through this process before. What is the criterion process for now selecting who actually is going to be inducted later this year?
So really the only criteria is it has to be 25 years since your first commercial release. After that, what makes a Rock and Roll Hall of Famer has become more in the eye of the beholder, right? Where, you know, the criteria has changed year over year. Is it longevity? Is it influence? Is it popularity? Is it, you know, how closely aligned they are with quote unquote rock music? It's kind of always up for discussion. That's what makes this time of year so interesting.
I think the debate really took off a few years ago when Dolly Parton was one of the nominees, and it basically said, remove me from the list, I'm not rock and roll. And then when it was all said and done, not only did she get inducted, but she put out a rock album.
Yeah.
So, and we look at this list and we see that diversity. Lauryn Hill, Mariah Carey. People might be wondering, well, what's going on here? But that's really, I think they've sort of, the rock and roll community has sort of embraced that all types of music play a role in what we define as rock, right?
Yeah, from the very beginning of the Rock Hall, the first induction class included Ray Charles and Fats Domino. Like, it wasn't just rock bands year in and year out. So now the conversation has expanded to pop and hip hop and R&B. And some of this is informed by recent history, right? So this year, Wu-Tang Clan is up for it, and a voter might look at, hey, a Tribe Called Quest that got in a couple years ago, why isn't Wu-Tang Clan in there? Same with Luther Vandross this year, up a few years after Mayor J. Blige got in.
Yeah, and you're all in on Wu-Tang, right? That's what you're pushing for now?
I mean, Wu-Tang forever is it. Yeah, they got to get in.
We should talk about, and I hate to use the word snubs for this because there are so many musicians over the decades. I don't know how you could even begin to cherry pick who goes in and who doesn't. But is there anyone who's sort of been standing out as someone people think, how is this group or how is this person not been inducted yet?
Yeah, the big three that are continually in the conversation for snubs are Alice in Chains, Motley Crue, Phish.
Okay.
You know, in a different version of the Rock Hall, obviously they're all slam dunk inductees, especially like Alice in Chains should absolutely be in there. Phish is still like conquering the world, but as we've expanded this idea of the Rock Hall into more pop and R&B and hip hop, there's less room for these types of inductees, which I think is ultimately a good thing, but I also hope those three ultimately get in.
Eventually get in. We'll have to wait and see. Beyond Wu-Tang, who else are you pushing to get inducted this year?
Lauryn Hill, first time. I mean, come on, Miseducation.
Right, one of the
Absolute
greatest
classic.
ever. Exactly.
Yes.
Right.
Jeff Buckley also.
Oh, that's a good one too. And
Yeah.
that's what's so great. I mean, the list just has so much diversity and so many different people. It's amazing. Jason, good to have you with us. Thanks so much for joining us. So the official Rock and Roll Hall of Fame class of 2026 will be revealed in April. Then the induction ceremony is scheduled to take place this fall in Nashville. And it's always a great concert that you'll want to check out. That's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now. But don't go anywhere. The news continues right now.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.